Hello, 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 and welcome to another episode of the Full Quota podcast. We're in the middle of the Women's World Cup. South Africa's navigating their way through, and as we've been doing with the other teams from the other nations, just talking to journalists and how with the team that the Momentum Proteas will be facing. The next team we'll be looking towards is the West Indies. Remember, South Africa actually had a tour to the Caribbean earlier in 2021, and then they also hosted the West Indies at home at the beginning of 2022. That was a really lovely series. It was a comeback series win. It was 2-1 with the first ODI being rained out. DeAndre Dotson scored 150. That could have been about 200 had there not been rain. So we're going to be talking about all of that, but most importantly, remember, please do subscribe to our channel, our YouTube channel at One World Sports Radio. We will be bringing you coverage of the Women's World Cup, and we're doing that as we go along. Remember, also, we've got a Patreon account, so please do support us on that Patreon account, patreon.com at One World SR. I've got Tim with me. I don't do the solo. Sometimes I do, but most of the times I don't. I've got Tim with me. Tim, how are you doing?
I'm good, thanks. Good. Looking forward to this chat about the West Indies, seeing as we recently completed a series against them.
Yes, and I'm excited because obviously now we can talk about like the nitty gritties because we've seen most of the other teams, they're unknown elements, but this one we've seen quite a lot of them. Who do we have, Tim? Please introduce our guest.
We have Ayana from the Caribbean. Ayana will be joining us discussing about all things West Indian cricket. She's very knowledgeable when it comes to the women's game.
Okay, so let's bring her on. Ayana, how are you doing? And welcome to the Full Quota podcast.
Hi, I'm well, and thank you for having me. It's nice to be here. I haven't really been in a South African presence before, so it feels very good to be here.
We're really glad to have you here. Good. We wish we had you earlier on during the West Indies series so we could have discussed what was going on. But I think from our perspective, and let's start with this, looking at the World Cup squad that the West Indies announced, were there any, what is the expectation around this tournament for the West Indian, the West Indies Cricket Board, the public, and the team itself? What are they expecting out of this tournament?
I believe the expectation out of this tournament is to groom some younger players to mix with the experience. Mm-hmm. The squad has about 9 players who would have been at the 2017 World Cup, but there are also some young faces: Sharianne Fraser, Aliyah Aline, Karishma Ramharak, the opening batter Rashada Williams. So there's a mixture of experience and youth in it, and I think the West Indies management are thinking ahead, towards the future, and want to get some young faces blooded into the international circuit. And for some, their first World Cup, I mean, it could be a bit overwhelming, but at the end of the day, they have to get the experience in order to perform at future World Cups.
Okay.
Let's get into the nitty-gritty of the series that they just completed against South Africa. What was the overall opinion on the series and on the team's performance as a whole?
I think that the team might have been a bit disappointed. In the first game, DeAndre got 150, and West Indies were really on their way at 230 odd for 3. And then when South Africa batted, it was 80 something for 5. So West Indies might have been telling themselves that if not for the rain, they could have won. But since that first game, the scores had not really been coming, and South Africa came into their own and eventually won the series 2-1. And this followed South Africa coming to the West Indies, where South Africa basically rolled over us with a 4-1 victory. We won the super over in the tied match. So I think that West Indies probably were a bit proud of themselves to do a little better, but still disappointed that they didn't put up a consistent fight in the entire series.
That's and I think that was the sense that we got. But looking at the games that were played, I think in South Africa and also in the Caribbean. Obviously, in the Caribbean, I think Stefani Taylor was unavailable, DeAndre Dotton was unavailable, but obviously they were available in South Africa. How's that batting lineup shaping up? What are the plans around that batting lineup? Because you've got the three big names in Dotson, Matthews, and Taylor.
Taylor.
But to score and to do well at this World Cup, you might need a lot more to try and get the West Indies as far as possible in the tournament. So who are the players that are you looking towards to try and get that batting lineup a lot more solidified, scoring 200, 250 consistently, going into this tournament?
I think Casey Knight. She's been around for quite some time. Also, one of the players who would have been at the previous World Cup, and I think that she'd be, because she's been batting at number 3 most recently. That she'd be looking, or the team management will be looking for her to provide much stability in the middle order there, for the likes of Stefani and Haley to come. Also, the return of Shemaine Campbell is a welcome return. And I think between herself and Shadeen Nation for in the middle lower order, we'll be looking to give West Indies some depth. I think one of the areas that we might be a little concerned about is the Rashada Williams DeAndre Dotting partnership. Rashada got a half century in the Caribbean, but she hasn't really gotten any big scores since then. And I think that the management might tinker with the opening partnership a bit, because they might slide Casey and Knight up and put someone else in the middle or lower order.
Yeah, I think that there might need to be a tinkering, because you don't want to have all those top 3 girls putting all their pressure. You want one of them maybe somewhere in the middle to bat with the others, so there's a sort of a glue within the team. That's a good point.
Yeah, because
yeah.
Sorry, yes, because we rely heavily on the big 3, Dalton, Taylor, and Matthews. And Matthews is an interesting one because since she moved from the opening position, she has been finding some favor in the middle order, getting in some good performances, and it's probably giving her balancing the workload a bit, that she is doing well in the bowling department as well.
Yeah. What about the bowling? Particularly in the South African series, I thought the spin bowlers, for large parts, caused the South Africans problems. Is that an area where the West Indian team are going to exploit, not just South Africa, but in this World Cup? Is there a lot of reliance on the spin bowling, or what is the thinking along the lines of the bowling attack?
Yes, I believe that there will be some reliance on the spin, having Anisa Mohammed, Haley Matthews, the return of Afi Fletcher. She hadn't really played a lot of cricket during the pandemic, and she has returned for the World Cup. So I believe that she will play a key role. The young Karishma Ramharak, looking forward to see if she plays alongside Anisa Mohammed, because they're both the similar types of bowlers. So I believe that they will complement the pace of Shamelia Connell, Shakira, and Chanel Henry, and also the young Aliyah Aline.
Okay. And I think for me that's one of the interesting things, obviously, because you're going to New Zealand, and from a preparation perspective, the pitches aren't necessarily as similar to what you have in the Caribbean. I think they're a lot more greener. They offer a lot more for the pace. Is there a because in South Africa we saw the West Indies going in with one frontline spinner being Anisa Mohammed or Krishna Ramnarak. or even Afi Fletcher. I think the one game they did play two. But then they also had Hayley Matthews bowling on the other end. How important is that all-round spot in that West Indies side with those overs from Matthews, maybe even Chadine Nation from a seaming perspective? Is the balance of the side of the your perspective 11? Does that have how many all rounders does that include, and also like how does that work from a spin perspective going forward?
Well, I believe that between Haley Matthews and Captain Taylor, they will, in the event that, the top five bowlers, they are bit under pressure or in a game and the captain think that she needs to find a part bowler to bowl like 2 or 3 overs and help another bowler make up. I think she will come into the game more. She hadn't really been bowling a lot, and she hadn't really, and when she did bowl, she didn't really get a lot of success. But I think she's still very good in terms of being able to restrict a team and get the odd wicket or two or create pressure so that the bowling partner can get the reward. The opening bowlers Shakira Selma and Shamilia Connell, I think that a lot will bank on them in terms of getting an early breakthrough. They're normally the success of them is to normally get 1 or 2 wickets with the new ball and build some pressure and allow the spinners to come into the game and continue to maintain that pressure. So it's ticklish, but I think that West Indies will count themselves lucky to have two all-rounders such as Haley Matthews and Stephanie Taylor.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. The other thing from a West Indian perspective that worried me in the series was the regularity of injuries. It seemed to be in every game somebody went down with an injury. Is an injuries, are they a concern with the West Indian management going forward? Are there any concerns that one or two are not at 100%, or is everyone 100% ready to go and fully fit?
Well, from all reports, the camp seems to be pretty good. I think we've had some unfortunate incidents where players picking up injuries during games. In the Caribbean, we had an issue with like heat. There was a player who fell ill because of the heat. Stefani was out of the game because she was struck on her arm. So I think, well, from all reports, they seem to be fine, and they've done a lot of work over the last 12 to 18 months having camps and stuff, and I believe that fitness would have been very high on the agenda even to the last camp that they had here in Barbados in January. So I think that they will hope that they don't have any more unforeseen incidents in the matches to take any players out. And the traveling reserves is a pretty very young reserve list with one Keisha Schultz. She's uncapped. Mandy Magro, she got a game in South Africa, and then Janelia Glasgow. So I don't think that West Indies will really want to go into their reserves because there's a lot of experience there. One player I would like to mention though is Britney Cooper. She is a bit of a floater to me. She's a player that she generally can. She used to open. She might bat in the middle order, And I think she's out of the World Cup because of for medical reasons. But I think that she's a player that West Indies might miss due to that flexibility that she offers.
Okay, and I think we saw a couple of the people that you've named and in South Africa as well. I liked Mandy Mungru, but you could see that she was a little bit a deer in the headlights, a little bit scared coming in. But that's the anxiety of starting in international cricket. Looking at the preparation of this side going into the World Cup, we've had COVID for the past 2 years. Um, what did you make of the preparation? I know that you obviously West Indies played the England series in 2020. Then they played South Africa. I don't know home and away, but I'm not sure of any other series that they managed. I think the Pakistan women, yes, Pakistan home and away. But was the preparation enough, or are you happy with the preparation? Because the one thing for me, from a South African perspective, I wasn't happy with the amount of games that the South African women had. I thought they could have had another series or two, but I do know that the West Indies also had to qualify in Zimbabwe as well. So, were you happy with the level, the amount of cricket that they played coming into this World Cup?
I don't know if happy is the word, but I guess a bit satisfied with the effort made to have the women playing cricket. One of the disappointments maybe is that we were not able to have a domestic competition, to give others who might not have been on the radar of the selectors an opportunity to show what they're capable of. Um, the World Cup qualifier being cut short might have been disappointing as well, because you want to see cricket played, you want to see those areas, you want to meet those targets that you set yourself. You want to be able to say, well, okay, this worked, this didn't work, and that being cut short might have been a bit disappointing. But I think overall, under the whole COVID-19 circumstances, playing 2 series at home and 3 series away, that we should be comfortable with the work going in, and then the warm-up matches in New Zealand. So I think overall satisfying.
Okay.
Fair enough. Fair enough. With everything going on with everything, that's fair enough. What are the goals that have been set for Courtney Walsh in this World Cup? What would be a satisfactory performance? As you explained, there's a mix of experience and youth within the side. So maybe the next World Cup would probably be a better indication of where West Indies are. So, what is the goal for the team in this World Cup?
From observation, and listening to the press conferences, I believe that the goal is to see other players putting in those performances and not having that over reliance on the best three players in the team. So you want to see more players getting half centuries, and not just if Stefani, Deandra, Haley doesn't score, that we're only going to make 120, but that the other players in the team will rally and carry us to 200, say 220. I don't think that they will be measuring the wins and losses so much, but I think that they will be looking to see those individual players putting in performances and meeting those targets. He said that he would like the players to bat deep and get those big totals, because I mean the bowling basically takes care of itself. The issue always is that the batters haven't really put a competitive total on the board to really support the bowling unit. So the young Rashada Williams, Casey Knight, Shamia Campbell, Shadeen Nation, I think that those are the players that they will be really looking to see good performances.
Yeah, and I was actually going to ask you to name those players, but my question then would be, looking at the way, or having watched the West Indies women play, one of the key things, and I think it's this thing in international women's cricket, is the rotation of strike, especially with around those players you've named. I think the big three sort themselves out. They can manipulate the field, and they do that really with a lot of regularity. We saw that with Kaisia Knight with a half century in Johannesburg, in one of those ODIs, and I was really impressed with the way she handled that innings. But in order to be able to score consistently 230 above or 220 and above, which is a competitive total, you're going to need that rotation of strike. Has that been something that you've noticed and something that you think the team should address, or like how? Because I think it's been a problem, but it's also been a problem. Is it something that you think this team would need to address, or is it just a situation of then their natural games to look for boundaries?
Yeah, definitely. I think that is something we need to address because in that game, the same game that you're talking about with Casey, and I thought that the batsmanship was pretty good, you know. But after that, I think we kind of fell back into the same old dodgy dots and struggling to get the ball off of the square. And we have players like Deandra, Haley, Stefani, who can find the boundary easily. But there will still be a period of play where the bowlers will be bowling well, and you still have to be able to score from good balls. And unfortunately, I think that might have also been a consequence of not being able to play actual domestic cricket, you know, and to work on those finer areas of the game to really tweak and say, well, okay, let me practice this at this lower level so that I'll be able to execute at the higher level. But at this point, I think that they will constantly be trying to tick those boxes, but it continues to be a concern for our top order batters.
Yeah, yeah, I tend to agree. Something to work on. Um, this is sort of a more of a general question about women's cricket and where it's going. Uh, how disappointing is it for the women's game with the fact that there are three uh, pretty prominent men's series going on at exactly the same time as the World Cup? So the eyeballs will be watching England against the West Indies and not West Indies women against South African women. How disappointing is that from a woman's point of view?
You know, they say that it is not an ideal world, you know, and we'd really love to have the women getting just a window, you know, to have the world's attention, because if you don't see them, then you don't know what they're capable of. You just hear about them or you read a report in the newspaper, but you don't actually watch to see what's going on. I mean, we must be grateful that we're getting the global event amidst the pandemic. Maybe it's an epidemic now because it's just here. But I think going forward, the ICC maybe could give it a bit more, just a bit more. I don't know. I don't want to say attention, but just a bit more of a boost, so that the women can really take the stage and show what they're capable of. We're always sharing with the men, as you say. Most people will be watching West Indies versus England, and to watch West Indies versus England and then watch West Indies women from say 6 or 9 in the night, a lot of people are not going to stay awake. They're going to get the rest to watch the men again tomorrow.
Yeah.
Yes, and that's true. And I think you do need to kind of separate it and give them the window. Hopefully, in the finals week, there won't be any international men's matches happening, because that makes no sense. Because you want to put a spotlight on the showpiece event that's happening in New Zealand. Speaking about that, West Indies' path in the World Cup is a very tough one. It starts with New Zealand, England, you've got India, you've got Australia, then you have Bangladesh and Pakistan, who I think are very winnable games. Of those front four, how do you think West Indies stands a chance in terms of being able to best one of those teams and cause a bit of an upset against that four teams that I've named? Because from a rankings perspective, obviously West Indies is sixth in the world, and so you kind of have a situation where you're coming up against these front four, and I would have preferred, from my perspective, I would have preferred at least having them spread around a little bit with some not necessarily easy games, so some winnable games around. But that front four looks very tough from a schedule perspective. Do you think there's a chance for an upset, and how do you think that they could go about that, and what needs to happen?
Well, obviously, starting against the home team is pretty tough, You would really love to get out of the starting blocks with a win, but up against the home team, it's a challenge. But I believe that having played South Africa recently, you have good experience and information on them. I think that there's a chance there. I think India is also a familiar team. They have some new faces, but the India would have been the last team that we played before the pandemic hit us. So I think that those two teams are the two that I think we might have a chance against. Um, there's always a good battle between Australia and West Indies, some very good cricket. And so I don't think there's a lot of a chance there. Luck would really have to be with us to get over Australia, because Australia is a really dominant side. But I think trying to tick those simple boxes and not really get ahead and say, well, okay, this is Australia, they're gonna beat us. So don't really win, but enjoy. I think I really want to see them enjoy the cricket, because as long as they're
Okay.
enjoying the cricket, I think that they're going to get the results.
Yeah, and DeAndre Dotton quick fire century wouldn't help. It wouldn't hurt much.
Um, what about the South African? You talk about the South African game. You talk about the fact that you think you might have a chance, like if things fall into place for you. Uh, who within that South African team are you most wary of? Like of the West Indies have to get out or do well against for West Indies to do well.
Well, on the batting side, I think that Soon Loose and Laura Volvart have really been coming through. Two very young players, are stamping their authority on international cricket. There's the return of Lizel Lee, who could be devastating at the top of the order. On the bowling end, I think that Ismail and Marizan Kia, I mean, you don't really need to say a lot about them. They're two world class bowlers, and also the young class. I can't remember her first name at this time,
Oh
but
yes,
I think
Masabata.
Matsubaza class. Yes, I think that she has really came through well. So those are the players that I think that West Indies might think are danger players.
Yeah. My last question for you is, I know you said you want the team to obviously enjoy their cricket, to play well. Is there something where you go to bed at night and or waiting for an hour before the game, and you just sit there going, in the pit of my stomach, it gives me anxiety, because if this doesn't go well, it could mean that we might lose today. What keeps you up at night regarding this team?
The love for West Indies, to be honest, I think we can't judge the women in the same way that we judge the men,
Mm,
because there's a very big disparity in terms of resources and stuff like that. And one thing I can say is that these girls work hard. They work hard with the limited resources that they might have. I think that the
mm,
coaching staff has done a really good job in terms of Stephanie Taylor said the other day that they're in a good space, and I think that that's very important. Having good relationships with the management, it makes everyone comfortable, and just knowing that they work hard, even though that the results may not be fantastic, they play with pride. Sometimes persons might say that the men just want to play for the money, but those girls really only play for themselves. They don't have
mm,
any big $100,000 match fee or anything so to play for. So they're basically just playing for themselves. And I empathize with them, and I feel it for them because it's quite tough.
mm.
So that's basically how I sleep at night. Just to be happy up for them and proud of them for their efforts.
I love that. That's really beautiful. Thanks.
Uh, One more for me. Okay, so you probably answered this one when I asked about the clash with the men's series, but what is the feeling around the Caribbean? Is there interest in this World Cup? Um, what is the feeling around the Women's World Cup in the Caribbean?
To be very honest, there isn't a lot of feeling. To be honest, it is a bit top heavy now. England is here, and England is a big series. The last time England were here in 2019, West Indies won. Jason Holder made a double century. So I think when the World Cup, once the World Cup is on, right, and then you see the star players, Stefani, Deandra, Haley, people, because we roll with the hype. We roll with
Okay.
the hype. So as long as it starts, we'll be with it. But we won't really be with it from the jump unless you're a really diehard cricket fan like I am. So as long as it's on, the Caribbean people will be supporting.
Okay, rolling with the hype. I love that. I love that. I think we should use that for our T20 World Cup next year. Yes, in 2023. That should be the logo, the slogan. We roll with the hype. Um, Last one from. So, what do you want at the end of this World Cup? What do you want the public who maybe know of West Indian women's cricket, but they don't know in depth about it, or guys who are, or people who are indifferent? What do you want them to know about this cricketing side that represents so many nations in the Caribbean at the end of this World Cup?
I want them to know that they are just as worthy of their support as their male counterparts, and they're working hard. I think that from the corporate end, maybe there needs to be a bit more support in terms of giving the ladies more resources to use, helping them to be able to improve their game, stuff like that. Also, we need to have more cricket for them to play. I've heard that there's some talk about having a women's CPL. I think that will be very good for the women's game. And also, we need to focus on the youth as well, because ICC are now having a women under 19 World Cup, and resources will need to be pumped into that as well. You will need to have grassroots level girls cricket in order to have a pool of players to choose from. So all of those things, I would really like the public to be aware of and understand what is necessary for the team to progress.
Yes. You would have thought that after 2016, after them winning the T20 World Cup in 2016, something would have probably given an injection. But that wasn't the case, right?
It wasn't the case. In the West Indies, there's always a mixture of cricket and politics, and sometimes one is ahead of the other for not so many good reasons. So yes, it's been a bit disappointing, but that's a whole other discussion that we can have.
Sounds similar to here.
Yeah, Tim and I sit on opposite sides of the fence on that one. Last one, just a fun one. Who's going to be the MVP for the West Indies? Put your head on the block, stake in the ground. Who's going to come out of the World Cup as the queen from that West Indian camp?
I'm going to say Haley Matthews.
Okay. I'm a fan. That's good. So bat and ball. So taking lots of wickets, scoring lots of runs, taking the games away from teams. I think, I honestly do agree with you. I think this World Cup speaks of her. But I'm loving DeAndre Dotson's form. I think that's going to be something quite important for your team. But do you have any questions for us from a South African perspective around this World Cup that you'd like to ask?
What are your thoughts on Daniel Van Niekerk missing and Son Loose taking over the captaincy?
Okay. I think from my end, it's a disappointment. I think having Danae at the top of the order brings a lot of calm. She won the 100, guys, as a captain, and that's very important to note. That she's such a great captain. But Sunay Lee's cricketing knowledge and the way she handled herself in the games in the Caribbean, because Danae Van Niekerk wasn't available then, and as well in South Africa, really set herself apart from a cricketing knowledge perspective. And I was really happy to see her grow. She's new. She's only captained like 20 games or 19 games for South Africa. So it's one of those situations where I'm excited to see what this team can do. I haven't dropped our expectations. I want the trophy. Because I think this is the best cricketing team in the country. I don't care about the men's team. I don't care what they did today. I don't care what's going on. I think this women's team is the best cricketing team in the country, and everybody should sit up and take notice. And the only way you can do that is to have your best available. But Sunay Lees is the next best capable replacement. If you think about it, I think most of this team's been together for over 10 years. And similar to the West Indies team. So you get a situation where it feels like this is our moment. And so I really do hope Sunay can actually pull it off.
And Tim, do you think... Sorry, go ahead.
The only thing that I will add is if you asked me 12 months ago, I'd be a lot more worried. But because of the what Mpho has explained, Sunay Lees has had a lot of cricket now and a very good couple of series from a captaincy point of view. To take her side of the side and lead from her point of view. So I'd be a lot more worried without Dana 12 months ago. I'm certainly a fair bit less at the moment.
And is there any young player from South Africa that I should keep my eyes out for in this World Cup?
Ooh. I wouldn't say yes. Okay, you'll say it, Tim. You say who you want, and I've got mine.
I can't. No. That's a difficult one.
Why?
Hey.
Why is it difficult?
Because the ones that I have a lot of respect for are also, we say, of the experienced type. And okay. I don't want to pick Laura, because everyone's just going to pick Laura. So yeah, I'll hand this one to Mpho.
Okay. So there are quite a few for me. But from a batting perspective, she's not young, but she's new into ODI cricket. Tasman Brits. I think she opened the batting in that West Indies series. She's one of the best players who's been in this team. She's really good and a really great fielder. So she's at the top of my list. From a bowling perspective, I don't think that she'll get a lot of opportunities. Is Dumisi Kukuna. I think she's a really great bowler. Might be an injury replacement most of the time throughout the World Cup. But the other girl who I think should be playing is our left-arm spinner, Nonkululeko Mlaba. She came through in that T20 World Cup in Australia last year, did really well against England, really good at the top of the innings, 20 years old, bowling like an experienced bowler, and she's got a lot to learn, but she's really come into her own in this format of the game. And so I'm really excited to see her. There's another batter in that middle order who, depending on how situations go, might work out well. Laura Goodall, she's a left-hander. I think you saw a bit of her in the Caribbean. You saw a lot of her in the Caribbean. She's played a lot of those games, but she didn't play a lot in Johannesburg. She's a left-hander, very classy. Has a lot of runs and stats under her belt from a Western Province perspective. So I think she's going to be quite important to this team, especially if we go deep into the tournament, because you don't know what COVID's going to do. You don't know what injuries are going to do. But the bench strength of this team is the best I've seen since previous World Cups. So those are a couple that you should look out for. I think they are, and that's the next generation. You know, the Denays, the Marizans are going to be moving off, and this is the next generation that's going to be coming through with Laura and all of the and then they might not get a lot of game time because this team's well established. But Tasman is the one I'm earmarking to be Denays' replacement at the top. If not opening with Lizelle or Laura, she might be coming in at number 3, and I think she's one of the better batters that we have in the country. I think she's a really great talent.
I look forward to seeing it. And just before we go, I should tell you all that my all-time favorite cricketer is Mohamed Aitini. So if you know him, just tell him Ayana from Barbados says hi.
Okay, I will. I will. I think we might see him in the Bangladesh series roaming around the commentary boxes will say, "Hey, Ayana from Barbados says hi." But yeah, if you ever get a chance to come to South Africa, hit us up. We'd love to have you around. And yeah, all the best to the West Indies for the tournament. We'll be watching out for you guys. My unofficial second team. I'm really a fan of Haley Matthews, so I'll be watching that team a lot. So yeah, all the best, and hopefully we'll be talking sometime soon throughout the tournament. Maybe it's a semi-final, because that would be really awesome. But outside of that, thank you very much, Ayana. Have a really lovely day.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure. See you.
Thanks, Ayana.
Okay, bye. Tim, that was the West Indies. I'm excited. I don't know about you. All the best to both teams when they go up head-to-head on the 15th of March. It's going to be really amazing to see this festival of women's cricket. It's a celebration, actually. It's not a festival. It's a celebration, and I think I'm excited. And yeah, we've got more of these coming up. Probably this will be the last one because the West Indies play South Africa last. So that's going to be quite an intriguing one. But Tim, thank you very much again. And yeah, have a good day. Enjoy all the cricket around, and good luck to the Momentum Proteas. That's all I can say.
We'll be back tomorrow, live.
Yes, we will be.
Yes.
Sure. Cheers. Thank you very much.
Cheers.
And goodbye.